Eddie George got Tennessee State rolling, and I think their new head coach, Reggie Barlow, is the right man to keep it that way. Oh, yeah, it's locked on HBCU. Play my music.
You are Locked On HBCU, your daily podcast covering HBCU sports. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, family? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On HBCU podcast, your number one daily one-stop shop for everything HBCU athletics, Monday through Friday. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And now, of course, Sam Darrion Gray, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South, Texas Southern alum and former TSU Herald Sports editor and current contributing writer at USA Today's Saints Wire, insights expert at Who Dat Dish. Thank you for going on this journey with me. Make it Locked On HBCU your first listen of the day every day. And remember, just because the mic cuts off does not mean that the journey is over. Just means it's time to follow me on Twitter at South Exclusives. Starts with an S and ends with an S. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 back in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. We'll wrap up today's episode with a two-parter about baseball. I have a question. Is the MEAC going to bring baseball back? And I only ask it because the CIAA has made that move. But let's kick this thing off with Tennessee State. We're going independent CIAA on the Division II level, and then we're coming back to the FCS to talk about the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference. So we're going all around the world in today's episode of Locked on HBCU, but it starts off in Nashville, Tennessee, because Eddie George did a lot to get that program to where they reached in 2024. Now that they're going into 2025 with Reggie Barlow, is it going to be tougher? Yes. Is it impossible? No. Is it likely that they are able to continue their momentum? I believe that it is, as long as Reggie Barlow can come in and be the coach that I know that he has been in the past. He's had success at Alabama State. He's had success at Virginia State. He's had success at the DC Defenders or with the DC Defenders at the UFL level. The only question is, how quick does that success happen? And I think that there's a good chance that they can be a competitive team in 2025. I feel the need to define what competitive means. I'm talking about their momentum not falling. If they don't make the FCS playoffs, I don't believe that I don't believe we should look at that as a step back, because it's not as if they were a automatic qualifier. I think that having a similar season would mean contending for the Big South OVC championship. So you can't be a fourth, fifth place team. I think that would be considered a step back. You should be able to watch them and say, this is a team that can make the playoffs. It's way too unpredictable when you start talking about teams that are, what's the word for it? It's not automatic qualifier, but whatever is the opposite of an automatic qualifier. But when you look at teams like that, it's kind of unpredictable. You need a lot of the things to fall in your favor. So I'm not going to have it as cut and dry as we made the playoffs in 24. If we don't make the playoffs in 25, then it's a step back. I understand how many would have it that way. Don't get me wrong. It's a very logical way to view it, but it's not the way I'm going to, because I think it's just too cut and dry. And I think it's too based upon factors that aren't completely in Tennessee State's hands, if that makes sense. But Eddie George, what he did took years to get to that point. And one of my favorite stories from 2024, was tracking how Tennessee State had played in the month of November under Eddie George, because it was poor the first 3 years. It was not good. But that last and final season, he was able to go 3-1 in the month of November in the regular season. Went 3-1 in the month of November. And that's really what not only pushed them into the FCS playoffs, to me, it's what signified the turn for Tennessee State. They had been good up until November every year, pretty much. They have been a very competitive team. I like that word for today. They have been a very competitive team in a lot of these seasons that Eddie George was coaching. But November came, and that's when everybody fell apart. 1-3, 1-3, 1-3. Like, they had very bad final months. Those final stretches were killer for them. But in 2024, they were able to overcome that, and they ended up going 3-1. So that was a turnaround. Now that Reggie Barlow is there, what do you do now? Are you starting from scratch? No. And I think that continuing what Eddie George built is way easier than having to build. Also, keep this in mind that Eddie George was still trying to figure out how to coach. That's not something that Barlow has to worry about. Eddie George has placed Tennessee State in a place that they had not been in over a decade. And now Reggie Barlow is picking it up from there. Some people take a step back. I think that TC Taylor is a good coach. But TC Taylor took a year before Jackson State was back in the Celebration Bowl. Sometimes things like that happen. We're trying to figure out if Reggie Barlow will let that happen. I also think Taylor had to figure out how to be a head coach. He had to figure some things out. But I do believe that Tennessee State and Jackson State have some similarities in how they're going to be moving into 2025 and how Jackson State was moving into 2023. But when it comes to Barlow, he's not figuring things out. He's not a first-time head coach. He's not even a first-time head coach on the FCS level. He is very used to what this feels like, being an FCS HBCU coach, being a coach at being somewhere that I guess has high expectations. I would say that for the DC Defenders simply because he was their first UFL coach. I think high expectations is fair because there's a certain level of excitement that came with the beginning of the XFL at that time and then became the UFL. But Barlow is used to so much of this, and he has a couple of secret weapons, and the biggest one is Greg Williams. If you're asking me why I think that Reggie Barlow can be successful in year one, it's because he has the reputation, he has the experience, he has in my opinion, Reggie Barlow has all of the tools as an individual to come in and be successful at Tennessee State year one, but he also has the help around him to be successful in year one. Allen Iverson shows you can't do it all by yourself. But what you can do is bring in a defensive coordinator like Greg Williams, who I believe will be kryptonite to so many young quarterbacks. Yes, you have offensive game planners who have come in and they understand how to deal with Williams's calculated pressure, but you have to understand he's really good at this. He's going to get a few off. He's going to get some free rushes. And I don't believe that young quarterbacks are as adequate to or as acclimated to what he does as these play callers are. And you can prepare them, but once you got bullets flying around you, I do believe it's a different conversation. Once you have bullets flying around you, it's different on how do you react when the pressure is there. Knowing how to prepare for pressure versus actually reacting to the pressure. There we go. This is the better way to say it. Knowing how to prepare to prevent pressure is way different than preparing to react to pressure. Let me say that one more time. Preparing to prevent pressure is way different than preparing to react to pressure. You can talk about that in so many different ways, but when we're talking about football, having that defensive end who's coming right off the right corner at you is a little bit different than my right tackle was supposed to block that guy. It's different. It just is, okay? And you also have guys like Fred Case. You have Shannon Harris, who has not been named the DC Defender head coach. And I thought about this as I was preparing for this topic. He doesn't have to be named. He could actually go be the Tennessee State offensive coordinator because DC isn't necessarily required to hire their coach right away. They could probably hire their coach at the end of this calendar year, beginning of the next calendar year. So theoretically, at least, Shannon Harris could go to Tennessee State, coach the entirety of the season, then get hired, or he could choose to do both, though I think that would be a lot. I think that would be a lot being a head coach there. But I think Alabama A&M offensive coordinator used to do both. He wasn't a head coach at either, but I think he used to do both the spring league and a fall collegiate season. It's possible, but as a head coach, I think that's a little too much on you. And once DC offers him the job, which they should do, and undoubtedly they will, I think he takes it and he moves on. But there's a chance that that doesn't happen until the end of the year, meaning Tennessee State could get him for at least a season. They have a lot of culture building. When I'm looking at Reggie Barlow, because mind you, I understand what Eddie George did took years, but you're no longer starting from scratch. You're starting from where he was and maybe a slight dip because of so many transfer players. But Reggie Barlow has the repertoire and he has the supporting cast to be successful at Tennessee State in year one. because he's done it in other places. He has Greg Williams, Fred Case. He has Reggie Barlow, or excuse me, Reggie Barlow has Reggie Barlow has Greg Williams. He has Fred Case. He has Shannon Harris. He has a lot of help to go along with his own individual success. I think he's the right guy to walk into the future with Tennessee State. Let's move forward as we're talking about walking into the future. The CIAA is going to bring back baseball, and I think that this is a very bold move, but they announced it in a subtle way. Let's break down both of those components as we continue with Locked On HBCU. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, and FanDuel is the #1 sports book in America. Shout out to FanDuel because we're not only moving past basketball, we're moving past college baseball, we move past hockey. It's a lot, but just because we're in the summer months does not mean that we don't have more things for you to make some money with. I love FanDuel for that because it never stops. Maybe you're a baseball guy. Maybe you're getting into baseball. I feel like the College World Series just makes me want to watch baseball more. Who knows if I'll do it, but it makes me want to watch baseball more all the time. Every time this part of the season rolls around, I just want to watch more baseball. Maybe I can make some money on it if I use FanDuel. Shohei, Mookie Betts. I don't know that many people. Adolis Garcia, El Bambi, Corey Seager. The point is, a few players, you can make some money on it. I don't have to be a savant. You don't have to be either. You can make some money at FanDuel. It is just that simple. Go to FanDuel.com, or if you're new to FanDuel, you can get $150 back in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to make every moment more. As we continue rolling on today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day. For your second listens, check out Locked On LSU, check out Locked On Oklahoma City Thunder, check out Locked On NBA. Those are 3 shows you want to watch because College World Series closed out last night or yesterday afternoon, and then the NBA Finals closed out last night. Also, check out Locked On Pacers to hear the other side of that, not just the victors, but what's going on with Tyrese Halliburton and his health. You want to check all of those things out. Trust me. You want to have a stacked Monday and Tuesday of listens. But right now we're talking about the CIAA bringing back baseball, and I think that the decision itself is extremely bold, and there has to be more that we haven't seen in order to justify it. The CIAA is bringing back baseball as if there's a lot of teams out there playing baseball for them, and it's not. Just because your conference doesn't have a sport does not mean that members of your conference don't play the sport, which is the case when it comes to the CIAA. They do have a couple of teams playing, but not enough for me to say, yeah, we're going to have a conference here. Not enough. You have 13 teams in the CIAA. 4 of them play baseball. I'm doing the math. You have 4 teams who play. 9 of them don't. How many of them are you going to convert? You have to convert some. You got to bring a Winston-Salem State in. You got to bring a Bowie State in, because right now, all you have is Virginia State, Claflin, Lincoln, Pennsylvania, and Bluefield State. That's all you have right now. And what is curious to me is you have 4 schools who play baseball that reside in your conference, though they play elsewhere. Bluefield is an independent. What about those teams who are in other conferences? When can they get out of those conferences? Are you going to buy them out of those conferences? Are you going to wait until that's up? When is that up? Once again, brings back the question of when can they join your conference for baseball? These are questions that I don't currently know. I'm sure we'll have more answers as the time goes on. But at the end of the day, I want to sit here and be excited about the CIAA bringing back baseball. But I can't help but wonder what's going to make 3 or 4 of those 9 teams that don't have baseball want to start. They have to be banking on more teams that are within their conference already to join and play baseball again, because they discontinued this in 2018. So we're going on 7 seasons, or 2017, I believe, and we're going on 8 seasons of not having baseball. And you had the choice to continue playing. Many of them didn't. Many of them didn't feel like it was financially responsible. The conference didn't feel like it was financially responsible. So you shut down baseball. But this is why I say it's so bold. Lincoln kept playing. Claflin kept playing. Bluefield State. Well, I don't even think they were in the CIAA at the time, but they're playing. Virginia State, they're playing. Let's go through them. Virginia State is in the New South Athletic Conference. Claflin is in the Peach Belt. Lincoln is in the Central Atlantic Collegiate Conference, and they're the most interesting one because they just got there, as in they played one season in that conference. One season. And then the year before, they were in the East Coast Conference. And Bluefield's independent. Bluefield can join you right away. Bluefield can be the conference champion every single year because they might not be playing against anybody else. No, but on a serious note, the CIAA's decision to announce that you're going to start a baseball conference again, right? You're going to go back to having baseball. The CIAA's decision to announce that they're going to go back to having baseball, having a championship, they have to be bringing people along. You have to be getting more members into this conference because right now it's only 4. That's the max that you can have. And I don't know what everybody's situation with the other conferences are, but you can have up to 4 because of the only amount of teams that actually play that are in your conference. You got to get 3, in my opinion. Like the CIAA said, we're starting baseball again, even though 2/3 of our conference doesn't play it. The CIAA said, we're playing baseball again. You got to have 3. I probably would have wanted that. I probably would have liked if you said, hey, we're bringing back baseball. We have the 4 teams that already play the sport in our conference. We're working on getting them out of whatever deals that they may be in. I don't know that side of it. Also, we're bringing back Winston-Salem State. We're bringing back Bowie State, and we're bringing back Livingstone. Like I would have liked if you told me we already have 2-3 teams that are coming back to baseball along with the conference. That would have made me more satisfied. The fact that it isn't that way, I can assume it will be. I'm not going to sit here and get upset. I can assume that will happen. Otherwise, why would you announce it? I just probably would have been a little bit more. I wouldn't have had one question. And my one question is just who else is joining? I wouldn't have had that question. So very bold move. They said, hey, in a nod, this is the quote, in a nod to the conference's ongoing growth in sport offerings, the board also approved the return of the CIAA baseball championship. At the time, there wasn't an automatic qualifier buy-in. Oh, it's not buy-in. Anyway. But it's gonna kill me. Automatic qualifier. You have automatic qualifiers, and then you have at large. There we go. Anyway, the point is, the CIAA wasn't getting no automatic qualifier. The SIAC was. Now we can have 2 HBCU conferences and likely have at least 2 or maybe more, 2 HBCUs who make the tournament every single year. That is the hope. That is the desire. That is what we have the ability to get. Now that the CIAA is back. I don't want to poo-poo on this. It's an 8-year hiatus. We're back. I can't sit here and tell you how much that they're clamoring for it. I can't. I don't know that answer. I'm assuming some people were asking for it because they brought it back. They decided to bring that back. So I'm sure that some schools were saying, we want to do this. I'm sure some fans wanted to see it. I'm sure it's not just, let's do baseball. We're seeing more sports come back, wrestling come back. We're seeing gymnastics. We're seeing just newer sports be around. So I'm excited for this. I hope that the CIAA has something else up their sleeve. I know that they do. I just wish they would have announced it. That's it. I just wish that they would have announced it. But as we push forward, the CIAA doing it. What about the MEAC? Could the MEAC bring back baseball? They have a few amount of players or a few amount of teams who are competing in the sport, just not in the conference. They're similar to the CIAA. Could we see a similar return? Let's explore that as we continue with Locked On HBCU. As we're wrapping up today's episode of Locked on HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day for your second, or excuse me, making it all the way to segment 3. And I thank you 2 times for that. Thank you. Thank you. Now, we've already looked at the CIAA, and I just wonder, could the MEAC be the next conference to bring back baseball? And this isn't a monkey see, monkey do. This isn't a copy and paste. This isn't any of that. I'm not suggesting that MEAC even has to do it. But I can't help but wonder, there is some geographical overlap. There is some institutional overlap. There's just regions are similar. I wonder if the CIAA making this call, you could see some of the teams who did come from the CIAA. Like there's MEAC schools who came from the CIAA. I think pretty much all of them, right? Depending on when you're looking at it. There are teams who probably have a similar feeling. And I just kind of wonder if the MEAC could bring it back as well. Could this be an HBCU wide thing to do? Because the MEAC is in the exact position that the CIAA is. You got rid of the sport a few years ago, a little bit longer for the CIAA than it is the MEAC, but you got rid of this sport a while ago. And now, you still have a few teams who are playing outside of your conference. So there's still some interest there. You already have a few teams ready made. As for the MEAC, I think it's much easier because you don't have that many members, right? Like the MEAC has 8 members. They have 8 members. 4 of them play. That's half of your conference. I know you have 4 teams in the CIAA that play, but that's a third of their conference. It's a much different conversation, in my opinion. Those numbers really do mean something. So that means something to me. That means something to me as far as the amount of teams that play. You just probably need 2. If you're the MEAC, I've seen you have a football conference with 2 teams. Just give me 6, or excuse me, with 6 teams. So just give me 2 more for baseball. I think that may be a little bit more difficult because you look at it, North Carolina Central stopped in 2021. I don't think that they're coming back that fast. I don't. South Carolina State, they've been out for 50 years. Howard's been out for 23. Morgan's been out for 24. I think that the long breaks are good and bad because on one hand, they're good in the sense that the issues that led to you canceling your program are no longer really there. They're no longer on the front of your mind. The financials are still a problem for many schools. So I don't want to say that they're not there, but it's not fresh. And when things aren't fresh, you're willing to try them again. You know, like you're not trying to spin a block on your ex from a month ago. Some of us not. You know what I'm saying? Some of us not. But, maybe my ex from about 3 years ago, maybe she changed. Maybe I changed. I never know. I'll spin the block on that. Not me. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I'm good. I'm good. I don't want no problems with the missus. But the point is, when things are fresh in your mind, you understand and you still feel why everything went wrong. When things are a little bit farther back for Howard, for Morgan State, that's about 20 plus years back. For South Carolina State, that's 50 years back. It's just you maybe not as hesitant to try again. But on the other hand, the longer that you've been away from the game, the less you may desire a return. Less fans may desire a return. South Carolina State ain't played in 50 years. They might be like, I'm not really worried about bringing a baseball team back. We've been without it for long enough. I'm perfectly fine not having a baseball team. Same with Howard. Same with Morgan State. Even though it's on a 20-year instead of 50-year, 2 decades is a long time. All right? So this is the other thing that I think kind of troubles the MEAC in my outsider opinion. Outsider opinion. I'm just being honest here, right? Let's use 2021 as a stopping point because that's when Bethune-Cookman left. That's when FAMU left. That's when North Carolina A&T left. Like everybody was gone by this point. You go from 2021, you have to go, and that's when Coppin State won. Or excuse me, that's when Norfolk State won. You go from 2021, you have to go all the way back to 1995 to find a current MEAC school with a baseball team that won a championship. You want me to be generous and just say a current MEAC team, period? Let's go to 98. You're talking about a multiple decades long drought for teams who are currently in this conference. It was Bethune-Cookman running stuff. You go to the 90s, which is before the stopping point that I had of 95. That's out of the range, but you go into the 90s, early and kind of late. Fam, you had a nice little run. There's so much history that's gone. You go through the 2000s, it's Bethune-Cookman running that century. You get Savannah State, get someone. FAMU get someone. I think they may have got a couple. North Carolina A&T got one or two. Like you're looking at all of this history that is now gone. And when you have a conference that's being ran by one team for 20 years, I believe that the investment in the other schools drops. This is a large amount of speculation on my part. I acknowledge that. But I can only imagine if Bethune-Cookman was the best team for 20 years, let's knock it down. Bethune-Cookman was the best team for 17 years. And every now and then, somebody else was the best team. Every now and then. But for the most part, you couldn't get past Bethune-Cookman. It was squashing everybody. There was a champs. We walked in every year knowing and expecting for Bethune-Cookman to be the champions. Let's say that happened on an annual basis. Fans will drop off, understanding that you're not going to be that good. You're not that competitive. And it's a sport like baseball versus football where I don't think you can just light that flame at any time. Lighters do run out of fluid. And sports that aren't football, sports that aren't basketball, in my opinion, you'll see that more often, that it just runs out. People don't care as much. You could be trashing football for years and people are still going to somewhat care. Like they're still going to somewhat care. If you say, oh, let's bring back football. Yeah, let's do that. I know we was trashed the last 15 years, but that's okay with me. Anyway, we'll be back on Wednesday. Still rocking with 3 days a week. Can't wait to see where we bring it. Y'all go ahead and check out those shows. Locked on LSU, Locked on NBA, Locked on Pacers, Locked on Thunder. Make sure you're checking them out because we're looking at a big time, looking at big time championships for the state of Louisiana and for the state of Oklahoma. So I appreciate you. Keep checking them out. In the meantime, in between time, until the next time that we hear each other, family, take care. Stay blessed. Peace.